Hey, political scientists and computer experts, it's your boy here, Thor Hansen, and welcome back to another political science video. Today, we are looking at democratic socialism and why we need it. This was a viewer-requested video. The people have spoken, so here it is. I hope you enjoy. Democratic socialism in a nutshell. Overall, democratic socialism aims to create a more egalitarian, socially just, and environmentally sustainable economic system, while preserving the core democratic rights and freedoms. It represents a distinctly different approach compared to both unrestrained capitalism and authoritarian socialism. The fundamental principles of democratic socialism revolve around gradually expanding social ownership, worker power, public services, and economic planning within a democratic framework. Key issues and concerns of democratic socialism. Expansion of social welfare programs and universal public services. Increased worker participation, cooperatives, and worker-owned enterprises. Centralized economic planning and coordination to address societal needs. Environmental protection and sustainable development as priorities. Internationalist outlook and global cooperation. Distinguishing features. Democratic socialism rejects authoritarian, communist, and socialist models of the past. It seeks to transform capitalist systems gradually through democratic means. It envisions a hybrid economy, not complete state ownership, with a mix of privately owned, worker-owned, and state-owned economics. That's why it's called a hybrid economy or a mixed economy. Emphasis on economic democracy and empowering the working class. The 8 key points of democratic socialism. Addressing wealth inequality. By expanding social ownership, the worker control, and redistributive policies, democratic socialism directly tackles the problem of wealth and income inequality through progressive taxation that has been exuberated under capitalism. This can lead to a more equitable distribution of resources and opportunities. Gradual democratic transition. Democratic socialists advocate for a gradual evolutionary transition to socialism through democratic means, rather than a violent revolutionary overthrow of the existing system. A democratic transition to a more equitable socialist economic system greatly helps to reform the capitalist system through a vision and reasonable restrictions that limit unrestricted free market capitalism, also known as laissez-faire capitalism. Preservation of democracy. Democratic socialists believe in maintaining democratic institutions, civil liberties, and political pluralism, in contrast to the authoritarian socialist models of the 20th century. Preservation of democratic institutions, civil liberties, and political pluralism is what democratic socialism is all about, and it is a cornerstone in democratic socialist institutions. A mixed economy. While seeking to expand social ownership and democratic control, democratic socialism envisions a mixed economy with a significant role for private enterprise rather than a complete state ownership of the economy. Mixed economics with both public, social, and private ownership is what democratic socialists are all about. Centralized economic planning and coordination in a democratic socialist framework may allow for more effective management of economic crises, such as a shock and stock market crash, as compared to unregulated free markets, which are prone to boom and bust cycles. Instead of the economy going up and down with its boom and bust cycles under democratic socialism, the economy gradually expands, and it might see a couple of dips here and there, but it's very stable under democratic socialism. Now, don't get me wrong, a stock market still exists because private ownership still does exist, but it's very limited. It does exist, but it's restricted in its practice. Emphasis on social welfare. Democratic socialists prioritize the expansion of social welfare programs, public services, and a strong social safety net to ensure universal access to basic needs such as healthcare, education, housing, and retirement income. Democratic socialists see things like healthcare, education, housing, retirement income, and a living wage as basic human rights that every citizen is entitled to. The commitment to universal public services ensures a basic standard of living for all citizens, improving overall societal well-being. Worker participation. Greater worker participation in worker-owned enterprises are promoted to increase economic democracy and empower the working class. Workplace democracy and the power of workers' unions and the growth of worker owned enterprises give more power and control to the working class, enabling them to shape the economy. Cooperatives, also known as market socialism, are businesses that are owned and managed by the employees rather than a handful of oligarchs. In a cooperative, workers are members of the business and have an equal stake and vote in its governance. It's basically workplace democracy, but better, where instead of the workplace being owned by the hands of a few oligarchs and corporate executives, it's the workers themselves that own it, and there is no such thing under market socialism as the CEO and executives being paid 50 times, 100 times, or thousands of times more than the rest of the employees. At most, the CEO, if there even is a CEO, many cooperatives just have AI take over for the CEO or eliminate it altogether through workplace democracy. And the corporate executives in a cooperative are voted in by the workers themselves through elections and can be voted out at any time. Ecological sustainability. Democratic socialists often advocate for environmental protection, renewable energy, and sustainable development as key priorities. These sustainable energy developments can help address the urgent environmental challenges facing the planet. Democratic socialist economies usually have one goal in mind: putting a stop to climate change and preserving the environment. Internationalism. Many democratic socialists support international cooperation and solidarity, in contrast to narrow nationalist approaches in capitalist societies. The internationalist outlook of democratic socialism can facilitate greater global coordination and collective problem solving on shared challenges. The key figures of democratic socialism. Key figures part 1. Karl Kautsky, 1854 to 1938, considered the Pope of Marxism. Kautsky argued for a gradual evolutionary path to socialism through democratic means in contrast to a violent revolution. Edward Bernstein, 1850 to 1932. A German social democrat, Bernstein challenged the orthodox Marxism and proposed revising it to emphasize gradual reformist change over revolution. Norman Thomas, 1884 to 1968. An American socialist, Thomas ran for U.S. president 6 times on the Socialist Party ticket, advocating for an expanded social welfare program and workers' rights. Clement Attlee, 1883 to 1967. As Prime Minister of the UK, Attlee implemented significant social reforms and the creation of the National Health Service, laying the foundations of the welfare state. Key figures part 2. Olof Palme, 1927 to 1986. Didn't live that long. The long-serving Prime Minister of Sweden. Palme championed the Nordic model of democratic socialism, balancing a robust social safety net with a market economy. Michael Harrington, 1928 to 1989. Didn't live that long either. An American socialist intellectual, Harrington's book, The Other America, helped inspire the war on poverty under President Johnson. Bernie Sanders, born 1941. The current U.S. Senator from Vermont, Sanders has been the leading proponent of democratic socialism in America, advocating for universal health care, free college tuition, and an aggressive action on climate change. Key figures part 3. Yanis Varoufakis, born 1961, the former finance minister of Greece. Varoufakis has been a prominent voice for democratized, decentralized, and ecologically sustainable forms of socialism. Alexandria-Ocasio, born 1989, the U.S. Congresswoman from New York. Ocasio-Cortez has emerged as a rising star of the democratic socialist movement, pushing for a Green New Deal and expanded social programs. Bernie Sanders' take on democratic socialism. Bernie on democratic socialism, part 1. Addressing income inequality. Sanders believes that unchecked capitalism has led to an unacceptable concentration of wealth and power among a small elite, while leaving too many Americans struggling to meet their basic needs. He sees democratic socialism as a means to create a more equitable distribution of resources. Expanding the social safety net. Sanders has championed policies like universal health care, tuition-free college, and robust social programs to provide a stronger economic foundation for working families. He views these as fundamental human rights, not privileges. Empowering the working class. Sanders advocates for greater working protections, unionization rights, and more direct worker control over workplaces in the economy, and things such as a living wage. These are basic human rights. This aligns with the Democratic Socialist emphasis on economic democracy. Environmental protection. Sanders has been a vocal proponent of aggressive action to address climate change, seeing it as an existential threat that requires a coordinated societal response. His democratic socialist vision integrates environmental sustainability. Bernie Sanders and Democratic Socialism, Part 3. Preserving democracy. Unlike authoritarian forms of socialism, Sanders believes in maintaining democratic socialist institutions, civil liberties, and political pluralism. He sees democratic socialism as compatible with and necessary for a healthy democracy. International cooperation. Sanders favors a more internationalist outlook, believing global challenges like pandemics and the climate crisis require cross-border collaboration that transcends narrow nationalist approaches. So I wrote a speech about democratic socialism that I would like you all to hear. I put a lot of time and effort into it, and I think it sounds very good. Here is the speech. My fellow citizens, I stand before you today to make the case for why democratic socialism represents the best path forward for our nation and our world. In an era of growing inequality, ecological crisis, and the erosion of democratic norms, the principles of democratic socialism offer a bold and necessary vision to create a more just, sustainable, and empowered society. Let us be clear. The current capitalist system, in its unfettered and deregulated form, has failed the vast majority of working people. Year after year, we see the concentration of wealth and power in the hands of a tiny elite, while millions struggle to afford basic necessities of life. This is not the product of some natural law, but the direct consequence of an economic model that prioritizes profit over people, that rewards greed and exploitation over human dignity and the common good. We are the wealthiest nation in the history of human civilization, yet we have the highest rate of childhood poverty among developed nations. We have the resources to provide quality, universal health care, yet millions go bankrupt due to medical bills. We have the technological capacity to power our society with renewable energy, yet we accelerate the destruction of our planet for the sake of shareholder returns. This is not just economic inefficiency. This is a moral abomination. The time has come to chart a new course, one that puts the needs of working families and the preservation of our environment at its center. And the course is democratic socialism. At its core, democratic socialism represents a rejection of the notion that the pursuit of private profit should be the sole organizing principle for our economy and society. Instead, we assert that the economy must be designed to serve the public interest, to meet the basic needs of all people, and to safeguard the future of our planet. This does not mean the complete abolition of private enterprise and markets. It means subjecting them to democratic oversight and coordination to ensure they operate in service of the common good. The central insight of democratic socialism is that economic power is intimately connected to our political power. Under capitalism, the wealthy elite wield disproportionate influence over our political system, using their money to rig the rules in their favor through lobbying, campaign contributions, and the revolving door between industry and government. This undermines the very foundations of democracy, as the will of the people is subverted by the interests of the few. Democratic socialism seeks to break this vicious cycle by radically expanding economic democracy, by giving workers a stronger voice and greater ownership and a stake in the enterprises they toil for, by democratizing finance and investment decisions, and by ensuring that the essential levers of the economy are subject to public control and accountability. Only then can we truly have a government of the people, by the people, and for the people. Let us examine some of the key pillars of democratic socialist visions and how they can improve the lives of working families. Universal public services. At the heart of democratic socialism is the belief that access to quality public services is a fundamental right and not a privilege. This means guaranteeing healthcare, education, childcare, housing, and retirement security for all, regardless of one's ability to pay. The provision of these services should not be left to the whims of the market, but instead integrated into a comprehensive social safety net. The benefits of this approach are manifold. Universal healthcare would eliminate the scourge of medical bankruptcies that ensured that no one has to choose between their health and their financial well-being. Free, high-quality public education from pre-K through college would open the doors of opportunity to people from all backgrounds, empowering them to reach their full potential. Affordable, dignified public housing would provide stable homes for the most vulnerable while reducing homelessness and its associated societal costs. Moreover, these public services would be designed not to simply maintain the status quo, but to actively uplift the living standards of the working class. We would invest in the best technologies, the most talented educators and healthcare providers, and the most energy efficient infrastructure, not to generate profits, but to deliver the highest quality of life for all. Democratizing the workplace. A central tenet of democratic socialism is the belief that workers should have a meaningful say in the decisions that affect their lives and livelihoods. This means strengthening trade unions, expanding worker representation on corporate boards, and promoting the growth of worker-owned cooperatives and other forms of social and public ownership. This ensures that workers will be able to make a living wage rather than just the minimum wage. By empowering workers on worker representation and corporate boards, they will be able to decide their own wages rather than the people at the top that don't represent them and only look out for the benefits of themselves from setting their wages as poverty wages. A living wage is a human right that will be guaranteed to all workers under democratic socialism. The benefits of workplace democracy are manifold. By giving workers a direct stake in the success of their enterprises, we harness their knowledge, creativity, and commitment to drive innovation and productivity. We reduce the exploitative power imbalances that breed resentment, burnout, and labor unrest. And we cultivate a culture of mutual respect, collaboration, and shared prosperity, rather than the dog-eat-dog mentality that so often poisons traditional corporate environments. Imagine the transformative impact this could have. Workers in manufacturing would have a direct say in how to make their factories more efficient and environmentally sustainable. Nurses and doctors would be empowered to redesign healthcare delivery systems to prioritize patient outcomes over profit margins. Teachers would collaborate with their communities to reimagine curricula that nurture the whole child, and workers in the tech sector would steer their innovative towards solving humanity's greatest challenges rather than optimizing ad revenue. Democratic economic planning. In contrast to the chaotic boom and bust cycles of unregulated, unfettered capitalism, democratic socialism envisions a system of strategic economic planning to ensure the efficient, equitable, and sustainable allocation of resources. This does not mean the abolition of markets, but rather their integration into a broader framework of public oversight, coordination, and democratic decision-making. The benefits of this approach are manifold. By anticipating and managing economic disruptions, we can prevent the devastating human costs of recessions and depressions. By directing investments towards green infrastructure, renewable energy, and the future-oriented industries, we can tackle the existential threat of climate change head-on. And by aligning production with the real needs of communities rather than the whims of shareholders, we can ensure that no one is left behind. Imagine if, instead of wasting trillions on stock buybacks and financial speculation, we channeled that capital into building affordable housing, modernizing our crumbling infrastructure and transportation systems, and upgrading our water and energy grids. Imagine if, instead of subsidizing the fossil fuel industry, we invested it in training programs to equip workers for the jobs of the green economy. Imagine if, instead of allowing multinational corporations to pit communities against each other in the race to the bottom, we coordinated economic development plans to create good-paying jobs in every region of the country. This is not some fantastical utopia. This is a pragmatic recognition that the free market, left to its own devices, is incapable of solving the monumental challenges that we face. By harnessing the power of democratic planning, we can build an economy that works for all, not just the wealthy few. Global cooperation and solidarity. Democratic socialism recognizes that an increasingly interconnected world, our fates are inextricably linked. The challenges we face, from climate change to mass migration to global pandemics, transcend national borders and require international cooperation and solidarity. Rather than retreating into narrow nationalist tendencies and xenophobia, democratic socialism calls for a new era of global cooperation. This means strengthening international institutions, empowering multinational decision-making, and ensuring that the benefits of economic integration are shared equitably. This means forging partnerships to tackle shared challenges, from developing renewable energy technologies to guaranteeing access to essential medicines. Imagine a world where instead of competing for resources and engaging in geopolitical rivalries, nations collaborated to build a sustainable global economy. Imagine if, rather than hoarding COVID-19 vaccines, we ensured their equitable distribution to protect the health of all people, regardless of their country of origin. Imagine if, instead of fueling endless wars for oil and other natural resources, we worked together to transition a post-carbon civilization. This is not mere idealism. It is a practical necessity. In an age of climate change, pandemics, and nuclear proliferation, our survival as a species depends on our ability to transcend the outdated geopolitical structures of the past and embrace a new era of transnational solidarity. My friends, the advantages of democratic socialism are clear. By expanding public services, democratizing the workplace, coordinating economic planning, and fostering global cooperation, we can create a more equitable, sustainable, and empowered society, one that serves the interests of the many, not just the few. Of course, the road to achieving this will not be easy. The entrenched power of the wealthy elite, the inertia of outdated institutions, and the propaganda of those who benefit from the status quo will all pose formidable obstacles. But if we have the courage to fight for our convictions, the creativity to imagine a better world, and the determination to make it a reality, I have no doubt that we will prevail. The stakes could not be higher. We're living in a time of multiple overlapping crises, economic, social, and environmental. The future of our planet, our democracy, and our very humanity hangs in the balance. But if we have the wisdom to learn from the failures of the past and the audacity to embrace a bold new vision, I believe that we can forge a path towards a more sustainable and better economy and environment for all. Thank you. This has been my speech, and I hope you all enjoyed it. Credits. This PowerPoint was adapted from It's Okay to Be Angry About Capitalism by Senator Bernie Sanders. This has been Thor Hansen with What is Democratic Socialism and Why We Need to Embrace It. Remember to leave a like, comment, and subscribe, and share the video. I would love to hear from you, and I will see you all next time. Thank you.